right. We are live. Hello, everyone. This is going to be a really awesome show today, and I have Michael B. Well,
Hello.
hey, Michael B. It's interesting setup today. It's just us two, so it's going to be an interesting
It,
setup.
it, it'll be different, that's for sure.
I know. Are we ready to kick this thing off? I'm not going to play around, but are you ready, Michael?
I am ready. Let me jump over here into this YouTube. That way I have that pulled up at the same time. And we are good whenever you are.
And if you guys are wanting to go ahead and chat, we are more than willing to accept chat messages. So just go ahead and chat in the YouTube or Facebook because we are going live on both platforms. And we will go ahead and address your comments throughout the show. Let me go ahead and make sure my phone is muted. And we're going to be good to go. Okay. Are we ready?
I am.
All right, ready? 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another iACast. My name is Taylor, and I'm going to be hosting this show today. So I know you guys are used to hearing Michael's voice, Michael D, but you guys are stuck with me for the time being. So with me today, I have myself and I have Michael B.
I am Michael B, not Michael D. No confusion there at all.
Uh-huh. We got two different Michaels. So Michael B and Michael D. Michael D is in chat. Say, hey, Michael. I just saw your chat message, and Michael B is on the show with me today. So I'm super excited for this episode. I don't know what your thoughts are, Michael B,
I,
and I'm going to be confused because of the two Michaels.
I'm excited about today's show too. I have a couple of tips that I want to share. I'm interested to see where you're going to go with it. And to be fully transparent with the audience, we just have a general idea of the topic. It's not like Taylor and I have talked in the past and said that's what we're going to cover. So definitely share your thoughts in the chat, and we will kick it off.
Yeah, so folks, we're not going to do a news section today. We're just going to jump right into the topic because it's super important, and I don't think, we can always cover news. The only thing I'm going to say is that we got this Apple event on Tuesday, which I'm super excited about.
Me too.
Cut. We got a chat message from Michael D. So we're just cutting this out. I know we're not editing it fully. But Michael B, you're a little distorted when you talk loudly, according
Yeah,
to Michael
yeah.
D.
I turned me down. I turned me down. So I got
Okay.
that. Yep.
All right. 3, 2, 1. So, again, no news segment for today, but the only thing is that we do have an Apple event coming up. We will be doing a recap stream eventually after that Apple event, but no big news today for our news segment. So I want to go into our main topic for this episode, which is upping your security game for cybersecurity. And I want to talk about how this episode came to be. And this was actually my idea. So the other day, I got this nice little email from Stripe, which is my provider that I used to take credit cards when I had my business. So it was the place where I would send out invoices and I'd get paid, and it's basically a big credit card processor. So you've got PayPal, you've got Stripe, Venmo, all the other big processors. Well, I got this nice little email that said that my Stripe account has had an attempted hacker from Russia. And I'm like, oh boy, because of the current events that are happening at the moment, it kind of had me a little bit anxious. Knowing that, of course, the tensions across the world and the whole importance of cybersecurity, I thought it'd be really great to talk about this on today's episode. And thanks to one thing that we're going to get into, spoiler alert, it starts with a 2 and ends with a factor. My Stripe account did not get breached. Now, I don't know why they went for me personally, because honestly, there's not a lot of money in that Stripe account, and I don't even have an active business anymore. But that just goes to show how important cybersecurity is, and not even cybersecurity in general as well, but phishing attempts, for example, and email attachments, and all these other things that we don't think about. It's more important than ever before, and hence why we called the episode Upping Your Security Game. So, Michael B., have you had any little cybersecurity incidents since all this crazy conflict stuff started around the world?
Not since all of this started happening in the world, but I will say, one of the things that emphasized security to me was one time someone tried to log into my Google account. And I was standing in my kitchen, and all of a sudden, I forget where it was, but they said that I received a text message that said that I was trying to log into my Google account and to enter the security code, which, as you mentioned, is a two-factor authentication verification piece of information, and it helped when someone tried to log into my account and stopped that experience. So that's been my experience with someone else trying to access my account. And I have a few tips and tools to share later on when it comes to two-factor authentication and password security.
Yeah, and that's super important. And, not only like Stripe, for example, but especially if you run your own business, and even if you don't, a lot of different tips. And we're going to kind of go through some tips and how to keep yourself safe because it's so important these days to make sure that you are safe online because of everything going on in the world. But even if things are not going on in the world, you want to be safe. But especially now, you need to step up your security game. So let's go ahead and transition a little bit. Now that you guys know what inspired this episode today, let's go ahead and talk about some tips. And I first want to talk about email phishing. So I want to talk about phishing emails. And the reason that this I want to talk about first is because a lot of us who may be watching are employees or maybe students. And for example, or even small businesses, exactly. But a lot of times this happens in big companies, although phishing can happen anywhere. And it's funny, Michael B. I was scheduling this episode to go live, okay, on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you wouldn't believe what I get. Right as I hit schedule episode and restream, I get this little thing that says, "We've been experiencing phishing attacks." Right as I scheduled it, I got an email from my employer. I'm like, how ironic.
That is very ironic, and definitely something to be aware of when you're involved in email, especially with external people. That when you're involved in email with external people, that people might be trying to get into your company's information.
Exactly. Or they might be impersonating different companies. Let me go ahead and turn off my watch because apparently it had something to say and was trying to listen into our podcast. I think that that's important as well. And let's kind of talk about how we can prevent email phishing because again, that's one of the biggest ways that people get hacked. And first thing is that if you see an attachment or you see basically the email sender, that has a misspelled name, for example, and you would want to check it very carefully. But don't open the email because that means that you would expose yourself. So in this case, for example, they may say, let me just use my domain, for example. So let's say that someone was trying to impersonate me. They would say tasolution.online or something, where my domain was ta solutions, right? So that, be a one-letter misspelling. But that could be a key indicator right there, or that the email is not familiar and that they have an attachment. But again, don't open the attachment. These are all actually tips that I received from work, as well, because obviously our CTO is like really high up on security. So thank goodness he's up on it, trying to make sure things are staying secured. But, that's something to keep in mind as well, phishing. Don't send sensitive stuff through email in terms of, that kind of thing. That's something that Twit was talking about. Is that email security is super important. What, Michael B?
Something that I believe the first time I heard about this was from Damasi, but I've heard it from a couple of other people too. If you receive an email that you're not expecting and it's outside the regular thing that someone would send you, for example, Taylor would never send me a joke. She might send me business related stuff. She might send me links to different WordPress plugins, but she would never send me funny TikTok videos or a joke that via email. So if you receive an email that's outside what you originally would receive from that person, consider, is this something that person may have sent me in the past? And if it's not something that someone would may have sent you in the past, pick up the phone and call a number you know. Don't call the number that's in the email, but call a number you
Good
know
tip.
that can help, or that you can reach a human and say, hey, did you email this to me? Did you send this to me? Make sure to use, again, contact information that you have access to, not what's put in the email or on the web page it's linked to in the email. And lastly, before I hand it back off to Taylor, a lot of us for the longest time was hammered into our head, HTTPS is secure. HTTPS is secure. That is true. It is secure. But remember, you're only passing information securely to the website that you're on. HTTPS does not verify that you're actually on https://paypal.com. You could be on pppal.com or something like that. So just be aware of that.
Yeah, that's a really good tip, Michael B. And even trying to, extend that beyond phishing, right? Because that's super important. And if you have to send something sensitive, consider sending it in a link or even encrypting it, so you could send it in a link and then like encrypt the file, but make sure you send them a password that's in a different format. For example, something that somebody did to me once is they just texted me a password, which obviously who knows if that's even any good either way, but it's better than trying to email the password that way, because email is not very secure, right? So make sure that if you're going to have to send something very sensitive, that you could, for example, use Google Drive, which is what we recommend, to just send them a link to it instead of trying to send them the attachment, because the attachments can get thrown around and scanned on different servers and stuff. And that's actually something that there was a Security Now episode that I listened to.
And one of the tools that I imagine we'll be talking about shortly allows you to securely send password information via email or text messages.
And we're going to go ahead and talk about some tools. So now we kind of talk about in terms of phishing, in terms of other things. The other thing that can happen too is that your accounts can get hacked. So actually, this is kind of funny as well. So the same day that people were trying to phish my work and trying to do Stripe, again, this was kind of all in the same week. Well, coincidence. I should say one of my friends, I'm not going to say who, their Facebook account got hacked real good. And I mean real good. Like they wanted to invite me to a Facebook ads account. And so it got hacked real good. It's not just someone trying to send you a friend request, but it got hacked to the point where the Facebook account's irrecoverable. And the thing is with that is that, it could have been a weaker password or who knows. But the thing is that you want to make sure, especially Facebook, Twitter, like anytime that you have an account, that you're going to use and that is, obviously a hack-prone account, right? All your accounts can be pretty, hack-prone. But in terms of these, make sure that you secure yourself with two-factor authentication. So basically, you'd have your password, and then you have, for example, a verification code, which Michael B. was saying earlier, that could get sent to your phone, or it could be an app, for example, like 1Password, which we're going to talk about in just a second. And that way, you're able to have a code that can get entered in the website. So not only do you have to have the password, but you have to have a code, or you have to have another factor to verify it's you. And that way it'll prevent some of these attacks, like it prevented the Stripe breach earlier this week.
So one of the two-factor authentication tools that I have experience with, I used at work, and Demasi uses these himself. I'm picking on him. In addition, I need to go pick one or two of them up myself, are YubiKeys. And what these are physical devices you have to have in your presence that you put into USB or USB-C or Lightning or tap on NFC on the back. And you are able to verify that you have access or you have been authenticated for that account. That way there's no codes being sent, and honestly, YubiKeys, in my opinion, are the most, assuming you don't have dexterity problems, they're the most accessible experience, because you don't have to worry about entering the incorrect code. You don't have to worry about listening to what voiceover is saying and typing them in. You just put the YubiKey in, push the little button or touch the sensor, and then you're onto your account and up and running.
I need to get one of those. I really do, because that's another thing too, is especially be helpful, like, in different scenarios. I know at work, everything is required to have two-factor, which is so awesome, because then I don't forget to do it. But it's really awesome to have the YubiKey. In fact, I really need to get one. So maybe Michael B, you could put some stuff in the show notes. Whoever does the show notes, places where you can buy YubiKeys or different variants
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah. I'll put some one caveat to that I do want to make all listeners aware of is not all sites do support the YubiKey factors. So be aware of that, and you may have to use an alternative. Now, are we talking about two factor? Because I have one other app I want to mention too.
We are talking about two factor. We're talking about tools now in terms of helping you stay secure.
So I use a tool called Authy. So 1Password, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, shortly, will let you do two-factor authentication codes in your 1Password account. And some of mine, I have my 1Password or my two-factor authentication account in my 1Password logins. But I also use Authy. I have Authy for my Stripe account, and I have Authy for my Mercury account. Mainly because I wanted that second factor. If I need to get into something, I want to have another device that I have to use to access it. Inconvenient, yes, and you give up a little bit of convenience for security, and that's how it's always been. So,
Uh-huh.
one thing when you're setting up two-factor authentication, though, as Taylor knows, and some of the viewers on here know as well, I've been switching between the Mac and Windows quite regularly over the last week or two, and I have run into a couple of incidences where I don't have the login details to get into one of my sites. I think it's in 1Password and it's actually in Duo or a different tool, and I don't have access to that tool anymore. So here's a tip slash advanced thing. In your password manager, when you set up two-factor authentication, you will always be presented with at minimum one backup security code. Save that one backup security
Yes.
code in your password entry as a note for your 1Password account, because if you're using secure passwords, then if you end up losing access to your second factor authentication device, you can leverage that security code to get back into your account.
Good tip, Michael B. And that's really helpful to make sure that you can always get into your account. Always have the backup codes. And sometimes there may be like an emergency kit where they'll have multiple backup codes. Save those somewhere. Save the PDFs or whatever. Save the backup codes in a secure location, right? You don't want to just put them, on my desktop. Like, here's backup codes, everyone. Don't do that. But save them in a secure location or in your password manager where you can find them. That way, if something happens, then you will be able to get into your accounts. I've learned this the absolute hard way. Completely, folks. I've learned this the hard way. Not having backup codes and then losing access to my account. And then not being able to get back in. Example, my Discord account.
Yep.
But this all goes to show how important two-factor is. And two-factor is a great way to make sure that you can be secure. And even going another direction in terms of this, making sure you have strong passwords as well. And preferably using a password manager like 1Password. I mean, yes, you can write things down, right? That's fine. But you need to be able to not make up weak passwords. And that's why I like about 1Password is that it generates very secure and strong passwords for me. And that way I'm always having unique, strong, secure passwords for every site. Michael B,
So
do you have any other things about that? Oh, sorry.
about password security.
Password security and kind of two-factor. We're kind of going into, password security. We're going into two-factor and, all these different ways to try to keep yourself secure.
Yeah, so I've kind of mentioned, for the most part, what I wanted to text. So one thing to be aware of: text message or phone verification is probably the least secure version of two-factor authentication. However, having text message or phone verification as a second factor is better than not having anything at all. So be
Exactly.
aware of that. If you can, use a hardware or software key that's generated. That way you can keep everything secure and you don't have to worry about SIM swapping, which is probably outside the scope of the show, so I won't go into too much detail, aside from people can temporarily steal your number to get access to your account. That's why text message or phone verification is less secure than the other options, but it is more secure than anything at all. And one thing to be aware of, just taking security into mind, you are as your security is as weak as the weakest point in your IT infrastructure. So if your cell phone PIN number is 1234566, then it's going to be super easy for someone to call into. I'm going to pick on T-Mobile, because they've had a lot of data breaches lately. So if your cell phone number or your PIN code is 1234566, it'd be really simple for someone to call into T-Mobile, swap your SIM number to their SIM number, and get into your account. So just realize and keep in mind, your weakest point is the less secure of everything.
Yes, and that's very important as well. And again, I'm super happy that two-factor existed, and that's a very viable option. And it's also good if two-factor is forced, right? I kind of like that, how our policy is at work, because that way I don't forget to do it. Because I'm going to be like, oh, I'll do this later, and then I don't, and then I forget. It's not that hard to set up two-factor. Usually you can just scan a barcode, and then it will be able to be set up with your barcode. And then it will connect your two things, whether it's 1Password or Authy. But yeah. But the security in general is super important these days. And Michael B., what would you say in terms of being self-employed? Because I'm kind of talking about in terms of being employed, right? I have an employer, but you just started a business, and so how are you making sure that your business is being secure?
uh, Kind of actually doing some of what we've already talked about here,
Okay.
making sure that everything that has the opportunity to has second factor authentication or 2FA enabled on it, using unique and secure passwords. I use 1Password, and being aware of, if someone from Demasi's number, picking on him again, texts me and says, hey, I need your bank routing number, this isn't something he's going to text me. He's going to call me and ask me for that, and ask me to put it in a 1Password vault. So be aware of what's happening around you. And I
Yes.
don't think he'd ever need my routing number because he already has that, but that's besides the point.
And that's the thing, same thing with Michael. Obviously, we live, together, but still, somebody could text him or text me from his number, be like, hey, I need your routing number. Again, this is, by the way, Michael D. Too many Michaels. But, again, it also, we live by each, in the same house. I'd be like, oh, Michael D., someone's trying to get my routing number. Is this you? Be like, oh, no. And another thing is that I've been getting a lot of spam calls lately. I don't know about you, Michael B., but I've been getting tons of spam calls.
Yep, that is accurate. And I've been getting a lot of spam calls, but I've also been getting a lot of calls that are misclassified as spam too.
Yes, I have. And that's also, I feel like I'm getting double the spam calls because, like, technically I'm in Texas right now, but I have a Michigan number. So not only am I getting Michigan spam calls, but now I'm starting to get Texas spam calls because I'm technically in the state. Now,
Yeah.
folks, I'm actually going to get my Texas ID on Wednesday. So, had to fill out all the paperwork today. So, that's the thing, too. Keeping all that paperwork secure is also something very important. But that's something to keep in mind as well, right? It's, spam calls, like, there's all these different things that could be security risk. People could get text phishing. I don't know if that's the word. But, basically saying, hey, I have a TikTok video. For example, I got this
It's
text from a 512 number. I don't know, remember what it was. It's Austin area code. It says, hey, go check out my latest video on TikTok.
it's
Well,
it's called smishing, I think is the
smishing.
actual official name of it, and it's SMS phishing. It is a real
What?
thing. One of the things that was going around for the longest time, and towards the end of this, I'll give people a good resource they can use in addition to Security Now if they're interested in keeping up on security information. But one of the biggest things was, in order to process your Amazon order, we need you to click here and enter your password. What? No, don't do that.
No.
That, especially if you're not expecting an Amazon order. Or another one that's been going around is your Amazon order for $5,000. Well, it was actually 1,000. So your Amazon order for $1,000 for an iPhone XYZ had an error. Click this link to confirm your order.
Oh, I've
Again,
gotten a ton of those.
yep, going back to if you're not expecting it, then don't interact with it. It's I try to keep it simple for people because I do work with a lot of seniors and a lot of people who might be susceptible to this type of experience.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not expecting communication from a company, chances are that communication is not really from that company.
Correct. And that's really important to keep in mind, folks. And and that's really, especially now these days, we want to be extra careful, right? Security is obviously very important. We've even done a whole episode on security last year. But I thought it was super important to really focus on this cybersecurity and trying to keep yourself safe online because of everything going on and because you don't know what they're going to try to get into, right? Maybe they can get into your stuff. Oh, wait, but maybe because they can get into your stuff, that who knows? They could find pathways into government stuff, or they could, who knows? So let's just all do our part to try to keep things secure.
Now, Taylor, what are you using? Because it's very important for us to keep unique and secure passwords. What are
Yeah,
you using to keep your passwords safe?
1Password is my favorite. That
I
is
agree.
the best password manager out there, folks.
Now, I do want to address a elephant in the virtual room with 1Password 8 on Windows. And for blind individuals or people using screen readers, it was a even for, I believe, sighted users, it was a jarring experience going from 1Password 7.9 to 1Password 8. I will say that once you get comfortable with the interface, I find it personally easier to use than,
Okay.
in some instances, 1Password 7.9 on Windows. And let me explain why. I'm using the Chrome add-on because I'm a Chrome/Edge user. And in Chrome/Edge, what I do is if I get to a place that requires me to enter a username and a password, I simply press the down arrow key. This then populates a menu with all the logins for that specific domain or website. And then if I hear something I want to log into, I press enter and it logs me in. The first time I do this, when I reboot my computer, I do have to enter my 1Password. So I enter my password. And after that, I think it's set to 15 minutes. So if I don't use 1Password in the browser within 15 minutes, I use Windows Hello. And this Lenovo laptop doesn't have Face ID on it or face identification. It does ask me for my Windows PIN. So it's simpler than entering my single 1Password. I enter that PIN and then I am able to down arrow and fill in the passwording username information. Now, today I was changing a password because I didn't have that particular site in 1Password for some reason. And what was really nice is when I was on the change password page where it says please enter your new password, please confirm your password, I down arrowed on the please enter your new password and 1Password automatically generated a password for me. I
That
tapped
is
in.
awesome.
It is amazing. I tapped enter on that and it brought me right into the screen where I can name that entry. I can add my username if it wasn't already there. And then I can choose what 1Password vault that information was saved in. And I tap on save or I press enter on save and it fills in that password information. And you know what? I don't have to remember it from that point forward. Like, I don't have to
That
remember
is
anything. And that's
cool.
nice.
Yeah, I love 1Password, y'all. We have a chat in our chat queue from Michael D. Asked, are there other brands of YubiKeys? I thought YubiKey was the main brand.
UbiCo is the name of
YubiKo.
the YubiKey.
Okay.
So UbiCo makes a YubiKey product, Michael. Hopefully that clarifies that for you.
Okay.
But yeah,
YubiKo makes a
UbiCo
YubiKey
is the
product.
company that makes YubiKey.
Got it. And again, make sure that you always keep your YubiKey with you, or else you are flat and out of luck.
Yes, yes. Uh,
Make sure y'all keep it with you, or else
Now I do
y'all
want
can't access your
we've
stuff.
mentioned 1Password. I do want to also state that I have heard accessibility. I have no experience with this, but I have heard accessibility of Bitwarden has been improved over the last couple of years, and it's a fairly doable now. I have no experience with it, but there are
Me
alternative
either.
tools to try out too.
Yeah, and if you really want to, you could also do Dashlane. All the accessibility is kind of eh, but
Now,
that's something else to keep in mind as well.
Taylor, you're an iOS user/Mac user now.
I
Can you
am.
tell the listeners why you use 1Password over Keychain?
Well, that's an interesting point, Michael. B because Keychain also now has two-factor support. So it's interesting. The reason I use 1Password, now don't get me wrong, I still use Keychain from time to time for small things, but I mainly have it on 1Password. I have it like an integration. But the main reason I use 1Password is because it's saved and it's, I don't want to say it's more secure, but I like it because obviously we've got 1Password teams, and if I need to share things, excuse me, I can do that. Also, for example, with my mother, I had to share a password with her today. So I just used 1Password link, the new link feature that they came out with, and I was able to share a password securely with her. And that way it wouldn't go through text or email. And so I use 1Password because it's very convenient, and I really, really like the features that it offers me. And it's a really great experience. Hopefully that kind of helps. Because, yeah, it is a great thing. iCloud Keychain can be great. But the thing is that I like the simplicity of 1Password, and I like how much more secure, I guess, or much more flexibility you get using the 1Password interface, and in terms of using it with Teams and that kind of thing.
So when I started using 1Password, iCloud Keychain was not available on Windows, and I was often in between both operating systems. And iCloud Keychain is still not available on Android, to the best of my knowledge. Now there it may be, but I don't think it is. However, 1Password is available on Android, so I prefer it for that cross-platform flexibility.
Yes, and that's mainly why I do as well. It's because I'm kind of all over the place. For work, I have to sometimes use Android. So, not often, but it happens. Okay. Well, folks, let's see what we're looking at for time, just because I want to make sure that we're doing well
We're at about
in terms
30
of time.
minutes.
Okay. We can continue to talk for a little bit. I want to try to keep this episode at an hour. That way it'll be easy and fast for y'all. But yeah, and so another thing to keep in mind is that make sure that if you're going to send different files and things, you send them securely, using 1Password passwords, right? If you're going to send passwords, using links, you can use a link in 1Password to send something to somebody, whether it's a link or I think you could send like secure notes and stuff now, can't you, Michael B?
I think you can. I'm not certain. I think you can with links. What I have not used myself, but the security conscious people in my life, Damasi, uses is sync.com, sync.com.
Yeah.
And he uses that because it keeps all of your information encrypted. You can also send people a link so they can upload data to you and it stays encrypted. So let's say you're working with someone who keeps all of their passwords in a notepad document, for example, and you need access to those passwords because you're working on their website. In order to get that information, you can send them a sync.com link, and then whenever they upload that information, it stays secure versus them emailing you a plain text copy of their data. So he uses sync.com also for keeping a lot of important information in there so he can access it. It's available on iOS, Android, Windows, Mac. It's on all the platforms. It's a more secure alternative to something like Dropbox or Google Drive. Google Drive does offer some enterprise services that allows you to keep some of your files encrypted and secure. That is a lot more out of my budget though, so that's definitely something to keep in mind as what can you afford and what's affordable. I believe sync.com offers 5 gigabytes of secure storage for free too. So again, that's sync.com. I'll drop it in the chat.
Yeah, that's a great thing, Michael B. Michael D just sent a chat. So that's a great thing, Michael B, because in terms of sending files, right? We talk about passwords and all this stuff, but another way people can get it is file storage and files. And so make sure that your files are secure. And Sync is a great way to share sensitive files and to have people upload sensitive things. Michael D asks in chat, mail drop. I wonder if that could be a, let's see, let me check out the exact text of this chat. So, mail drop, if you use iCloud, but I wonder if you could do this with any file size if it's small. I don't know.
I think mail drop I don't know, but something to be aware of is MailDrop is only secured by iCloud. Your file then isn't, to the best of my knowledge, and I am willing to be corrected, but your file is not encrypted. So it still wouldn't be a secure way. I think something like Sync or 1Password to share password information would be the best solution.
Yes, it would. Yep. But yeah, it would definitely be the best way using Sync or password. Thanks for that chat and chat Payon, Michael B. Keep going back and forth today. Y'all, my thoughts are not in order at the moment. I I've had a crazy weekend, so I'm kind of all over the place at the moment. And
So,
yeah.
Taylor, you mentioned, unless you had something else you want to talk, we can wrap it up and share some resources with people if you want.
Yeah, I want to wrap it up and share some resources, and I also want to do our picks. So let's go ahead and do some resources, Michael B.
So
And I
one of
will
the
go
resources I want to
next.
mention, because you mentioned Security Now, I have admittedly not listened to that podcast. I need to start listening to it. I've heard it from multiple different people, so maybe after today I will start listening to it. One of the
Maybe I'm the.
resources I do want to recommend, though, is every other Sunday. Tonight is one of the Sundays. Today is the 6th of March. So on the every other Sunday from the 6th of March, you can listen to the Podfeet podcast, NosillaCast, and Bart does a security bits with Allison, who is the main host of that podcast, and he goes over a lot of the security news, what's going on, what you should be concerned about, and breaks it down into simple to understand terms, kind of more detailed than what we talk about, but gives you a good opportunity to experience that. And Michael, I appreciate you sharing that about MailDrop. He says that it will upload it to the iCloud servers and then gives you a link. Again, I still don't know if it is encrypted when it's on the iCloud servers or not, but it's a good service and I've used it before. So that's the one resource I wanted to mention, though, is the security bits with Bart on every other Sunday at podfeet.com, or you can go to bartb.ie in order to get that, and I'll drop that in the chat as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really great resource. And you said that's six. Whose time is that? Six my time. Six your time.
Oh, no, I was saying that it's on the opposite Sunday of today. Today is March 6th.
Oh,
Yeah,
my
so
bad. I
every
thought
other
you said
Sunday,
6 o'clock.
including today, is at the 6th. Now, if we if we really want to be technical, I mean, they do go live on her website at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, if that helps.
Oh, man. Okay. Well, I'm not even gonna try to figure out time zones right now because my brain is not in the proper mode for that. But yes, great resources. And again, I'd say Security Now. I didn't know about that podcast, Michael. Be able to have to check that out. So Security Now is one of them. I'll go ahead and throw that in chat. Security Now by Twit, although it is more of a advanced listener podcast, meaning that they don't go explain things. It's just kind of meant for IT pros. But it's still usable if you kind of have an idea what they're talking about. But I'd also say follow cybersecurity on Apple News as well, because then you could get more of that stuff kind of on a daily basis. Well, should we go ahead and wrap it up, Michael B? Go talk about our picks for the week?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. So, where can people find you online, and what is your pick for the week?
People can find me sometimes. I think this is like the third or fourth time I've been on the iAccessibility podcast. They can also find me at yourownpay.com, yourownpay.com. You can also find me on the DM series podcast. I'm on Twitter at Payown, Payown, and in most places aside from Instagram, I am that same username, including TikTok, Clubhouse, and Facebook, I think. Oh, and LinkedIn. And I would have to say my pick this week would probably be man Man, you threw me off there. Let's go with. I'm gonna go ahead and pick Authy, which is that two-factor authentication app
Okay.
that I mentioned. Very simple to use, clean interface, and it is fully accessible with VoiceOver. You know how much time is left before the code expires, and then you are able to read the code character by character. And again, it's a very clean and simple to use interface.
That's awesome, Michael B. I will go next. So people can find me producing content for iAccessibility. You can also find me at Techopolis on the Techopolis YouTube channel, and on Twitter at Tay Arndt, ARNDT, and as well on Facebook, Taylor Arndt. And yeah, those are places where you guys can find me. Obviously, I'm also on Clubhouse sometimes, but not a whole lot these days. But I am there, so if you do see me, say hi. But I think that's going to be it for today, unless anyone has anything. Great
What
show,
about your
folks.
pick?
Oh, good call. I totally forgot. Thanks, Michael B, for keeping me in check. I told you all today, my brain is not in working order. So, my pick for this week is something I'm wearing on top of my head called AirPods Max. I bought some AirPods Max this week, and I love them. They are great. So, AirPods Max for the win, y'all.
Now, is that the microphone you're using, Taylor? Is on the
No,
AirPods
I'm
Max?
using the
Okay.
microphone.
Okay. Either way, you're coming in pretty clear.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But, folks, that is going to do it for real this time. Thanks, Michael B, for keeping me in check. I need that every once in a while, but hopefully you guys like this episode. And with that, we will see you guys for our next episode, which I believe is going to be our robot vacuum showdown.
Bye, everyone.
Thank y'all. Have a great day, and we'll talk soon. Bye, everyone.